Hi everyone, welcome to Kindle Bay Church's vlog again today. Today we're still on Reading Between the Lines by Glenn Scrivener, and we are on day 98, which is Matthew 23, 1 to 12, and the title for today's message is They Do Not Practice What They Preach. So I'll just read the chapter and then just got some of my thoughts to add on the end. The adulterous pastor who campaigns for family values. The drug-taking sports star portraying a spotless image to sponsors. The socialist politician who sends her children to exclusive prep schools. The world despises leaders who don't practice what they preach, and so does Jesus. In fact, Jesus leads the way in the condemnation. Then Jesus said to the crowds and to his disciples, "The teachers of the law and the Pharisees sit in Moses' seat. So you must be careful to do everything they tell you, but not do what they do, for they do not practice what they preach. They tie up heavy, cumbersome loads and put them on other people's shoulders, but they themselves are not willing to lift a finger to move them. Everything they do is done for people to see. They make their phylacteries wide and the tassels on their garments long. They love the place of honour at banquets and the most important seats in the synagogues. They love to be greeted with respect in the marketplaces and to be called rabbis by others." That's Matthew 23, 1 to 7. These words from Christ would have fallen like asteroids on the cultural and religious scene of his day. Jesus is opening fire on the holiest people these Jews had ever seen. The teachers of the law and the Pharisees were the best of the best, the greatest Bible scholars, the strictest moral leaders. It was the teachers of the law and Pharisees who chastised the culture from the vantage point of the religious right, but somehow Jesus outflanks them. Not so much from the right, but from above. The assembled crowd would have been astounded, and the teachers of the law and Pharisees would be choking with righteous indignation. Surely the tax collectors and sinners, surely the Sabbath breakers, the prostitutes, the Samaritans, the Romans, surely they should be on the receiving end of Christ's blistering rebukes. But no, here is the prophet par excellence doing what prophets do best, uncovering the pretensions of the religious leaders. It is public, it is sharp-tongued, it is brutal, it is unrelenting. Over the next 3 days, we will consider some of his critiques. He calls these religious leaders the blind leading the blind. He calls them whitewashed tombs. He says they strain at a gnat and swallow a camel. But his first criticism is the most basic. They don't practice what they preach. And don't we hate that? We hate preaching more generally, but if there's any hint of a double standard in the preacher, we are outraged. We demand integrity and transparency. Yet this begs a question, a big one. What about Jesus? Here he is doing a lot of preaching. So then, does Jesus practice what he preaches, or is he a hypocrite like the rest? Incredibly, no. Here is a preacher who commands, love your enemies, bless those who curse you, do good to those who hate you, and pray for those who despise and persecute you. Matthew 5:44. Wonderfully he practiced it too. As they mocked, tortured and killed him, he prayed, "Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing." Luke 23:34. With Jesus, there is an integrity and transparency beyond anything humanity has ever known. Jesus preached the highest standards imaginable, love for enemies, and yet practiced those standards perfectly the whole of his life. His life matched his lips, and the whole world took note. You and I might hate hypocrisy, but even as we rail against it, we perjure ourselves knowing that we too wear masks, we too have double standards, we too go back on our word. Not Jesus. Today be astounded by the man without a mask, the Lord whose life and lips matched, the Saviour who went all the way to the cross to practice what he preached. So as I read that this morning, I was thinking of my last Sunday in church when I lived in Sudbury in Suffolk. I left the church there to go to Bible college in South Wales, and my last Sunday in the church I was given the opportunity to preach. And I chose to preach from Philippians 4 verse 9, which says, "Whatever you have learned or received or heard from me or seen in me, put it into practice, and the God of peace will be with you." Now, I immediately prefaced my message by saying, I am in no way saying to you, whatever you have learned, received or heard or seen in me, Robert Greeno, put that into practice. But my challenge to the church was, should I be able to say that? Should we be able to say that as God's people? The reality is, of course, that none of us are perfect. We all make mistakes. We try to live as best we can to God's standards, but we will all slip up at times. But thank God we have someone who can say those words that Paul wrote. Someone that we can model ourselves on. Someone that we can look up to. And someone who that is worth following, Jesus. Not only that, in Jesus we have someone who is ready and able to offer us forgiveness whenever we do fall short, whenever we do slip up. He's there for us, ready and willing to forgive. So let's seek to model ourselves on Jesus, reading his word, spending time with him and living our lives in a way that reflects him in all that we do, knowing that when we do make mistakes, he is indeed ready there to forgive. Have a great day, everybody, and I'll see you all soon.